Hey friends, Paloma here, and welcome to the Bates Family General Canning Supply Station. Today I'm coming at you with an organization video to help you create a space that is not only organized, but is creative, aesthetically pleasing, fully functional, affordable, and has room for growth. Now, if you're new here, let me introduce you to myself a bit. I am Paloma, a full-on maximalist vintage lover that has created functional systems for many years now that are tried and true. I take into consideration one's ability to envision an entire space or not, and share all of the information possible to help you begin or even change your unorganized systems with confidence. So let's go ahead and dive in. First, let's take an overall look into my supply station and let me explain what I prioritize. My first priority is definitely creating a general store vibe and doing it on a tiny budget. I've done a full room tour at this point of this entire space if you're interested in seeing that, but today we are solely focused on the canning supply system and station. I wanted an old world apothecary vibe, so I decided to go with an open face hutch. It meets a few of my necessary points such as storage requirements, weight tolerance, height per shelf to store tall, bulky jars, open shelving for quick and easy access to maintain a one-step in and one-step out system, closed storage for smaller items that require a covered space to prevent dust collection with drawers, but still only requires a one-step in and one-step out system. And then it has closed cabinet space at the bottom for less often reach for product, but easily accessible and easy to remember that it's there because out of sight, out of mind. If you're new to the world of canning, you may be asking, what are the canning supplies basic staple items? So let's go ahead and take a look at them. For starters, you're going to need your canners. I have the All-American 925 and 921 pressure canner, and then I have the Malpots as my water bath canner because it's basically a stock pot with a rack, and then you have an electric option as well. You're going to need jars of different sizes. They come in wide and standard mouth, and you're going to need lids for those jars. You can have a reusable lid option that comes with the rubber seals, or you can have a single-use option that is the metal that you can toss whenever you have used it or it's in bad condition. You're also going to need rings in wide and standard mouth sizes. They typically come with the jars. Then you can have a funnel set. I love my 4-jar funnels. They are wide and standard mouth, but there's many different options, shapes, and sizes. They all work very well. Also, your pressure canner is going to have some weights that you're going to need to have on hand. You need a debubbler, you need a jar lifter, and you're going to need some basic utensils that you use for your processing. And then, of course, preserving ingredients like sea salt, pickling salt, pectin, and petroleum jelly if you have an All-American because it's metal to metal, so you need that petroleum jelly so it doesn't stick. And some alcohol and permanent markers to be exact. The alcohol helps remove the permanent marker when you make a label. And then in some cases, you're going to need other lids like the wood ball jar lids that I found at Dollar Tree, which was awesome. And then some plastic or full size lids for jars that you open and need a lid for. And then in some cases, if you're going to vacuum seal, you'll need your vacuum sealer tools. I have the hoses and the caps for vacuum sealing from 4 jars. And of course, I will leave a discount code below for you guys as well as links to these items. Now that we know what the basic water bath and pressure canning supplies look like, let's talk about quantity and the reality of growth in product supplies. As you learn more, you will absolutely need more supplies. I recommend starting with larger containers or canisters to store your basic supplies. I typically like to give myself a quick grab option that holds quite a bit, but is manageable and easy to transport, and a bigger backup to whatever that item is. For example, the sea salt. I have a nice, full, tall jar that holds a lot, and it has a bigger backup for the excess to refill later. It has a space to live in, so we don't have to find a way to work it in the case that we find an amazing sale or anything like that. Once you've taken account of the basic items, you can work in your aesthetic. Make it a space you love to be in. Even if it takes a little time thrifting individual treasures as I have, or shopping your own house to use what you already have, make it comforting and inspiring to you because you're the one living in it and working in it. One step in, one step out. What is it? Why does it work? Well, let's talk more about how I use the one step in, one step out system and why. Canning is a lot of work. It has a lot of bits and pieces that you will use regularly to perform the actual job of canning, but others will be also using this system. For example, when I cook dinner or the kiddos come down to grab a home canned snack, the supplies will ultimately make their way through the kitchen and back into your canning supply space. In my house, when jars, lids, rings, or whatever is washed, they are set to dry and put randomly into the canning area. Then when I come down, I put things back into their live-in spaces. If I had to move several boxes, jars, bins, or whatever else, I would have a mess in this space often. Though I am a maximalist and I love a lot of things, an unorganized mess is not one of them. So the one step in, one step out ensures that your space will be easy to clean even if life happens and it builds up a lot more than you expected. It will not take a long time to get back in order because it requires no more than just putting it in its place. Top to bottom, left to right. What is it? Why does it work? We're going to talk about why I chose to organize the way I did, and organizing the same foundation in any system is essential, and that is top to bottom, left to right. It just means the most often used from the top down to the least often used. Left to right is your starting point to finish point. So I will collect my supplies here and then move to my right, which is the jar storage, which we will look at later. The open storage shelves are perfect for ingredients because we need large containers, and clearly that's not going to fit in the drawers. And we reach for them often, so we don't need to store them in the lower cabinets. So here we can see what we have and automatically know when it's time to restock. You have your grab and go and your refill in the live-in space, no brain work required. Aside from ingredients, we have actual hard materials and supplies. No, I didn't want my used and unchecked lids to get mixed up with my new and checked lids, so I put 3 nice sized containers to hold used lids. It keeps them away from the new lids. Why does this matter? Because I will check used lids for another use. Then I will add them to the drawer with the new lids. And I know that if they're in this drawer, that I can use them for vacuum sealing. If it's in this drawer, it's ready to use. And because I know you're so observant, you're probably asking, then why didn't you put the new 4-jar wide mouth lids into the drawer? Well, that's simple. They don't fit well, and I just don't have that many on hand regularly because I use them very often for vacuum sealing on the half-gallon jars for dry food, so I just don't need them in the drawer. I can just keep them in a jar. Sticking to the concept of used, I have wide mouth and standard mouth Harvest Guard and Tattler lids in bands. So since they're used over and over again, I do write on them. I keep them in jars to keep reusing them and only reach for new ones out of the drawer if necessary. And just in case you're curious, the organizers are from Dollar Tree. They are clear plastic and I've had them for years. Next, we have our jars of rings. Rings are reusable until cruddy, so I just toss them into their live-in jar until I need them. These are also the rings that I reach for whenever I'm vacuum sealing and add a ring to some of the jars. I also have wood lids that I found at Dollar Tree, which was pretty freaking awesome because they're like 12 to 15 bucks a box, and they were $1.25 for 5 lids. That was awesome. And I have some plastic lids that I hold on to for whenever I make the hubby's immunity shots. Some basics you will always need to have but won't want to look for are pens, markers, scissors, and alcohol. So I would suggest keeping that on the surface as well. Permanent marker and 91% alcohol being the most important. You can use the marker to make your labels, and then you can use the alcohol to clean the labels off when putting new food. Let's talk small tools. First, I do keep my 4-jar funnels out because I love them and I use them for canning and vacuum sealing, so I reach for them often. But looking into the top drawer, we have the most essential tools and lids. I always want to have lids on hand, whether it be the disposable, single-use, or the reusable. So I make sure to have a space large enough to hold a lot of lids, but not a ton of packaging. I remove the packaging and put them in their new home. That way, when I need them, I just open the drawer, grab them, one step in, one step out. And the same applies for my canning weights, debubblers, lid magnet sticks, jar lifters, lids, and everything else that I use for the canning process. Everything is accessible, one step in, one step out. And in the lower 2 drawers, there are things that I don't reach for as often, such as coffee filters for cleaning or vacuum seal bags and more wood lids. And then in the cabinets below, there's not really canning specific stuff in there, so we don't really need to cover that. There's things like egg cartons and metal freezer trays and stuff like that. But one area or category that we haven't covered yet is the actual canners. Pressure canners are very heavy, so I would suggest doing what works for you for that. I have a table here, so if I didn't have a special place for them already, I would consider storing them on the table or even under the table when not in use. A water bath canner, though, is basically a stock pot, and they're super light in weight, so I just store mine on the top of the hutch. It's perfect for me because they are out of the way, because they are big, so they're not taking up a lot of counter space or floor space, and I can grab them with a step stool, and the hutch can actually hold multiples of them for me, which is necessary. Makes it a very simple system. And then, of course, I can fit my electric canner up there. It's not too heavy, it's not too light, it's a great spot for it. And technically, since they are on the left side of the system, I can grab my pots and fill it with supplies for transport to the kitchen. So I can throw everything into the pot and then carry the actual pot up. Now let's talk storing empty jars. I highly recommend a standalone empty jar station. This will automatically reduce any visual clutter between food jars and empty jars. You get a quick visual of what supplies you have because they will all be together at any given moment. Keeping them separate by size as much as possible, again, to have quick glance visual of what you have for any canning session is important. It makes for quick grab and go. Also, another quick way to identify the jars that have already been washed previously from jars that are new, or maybe you have just purchased from a thrift store or something. Clean jars that have been previously washed are put rim down. Anything that needs to be washed or has never been washed is rim up. It just helps me identify what needs to be cleaned a little bit more thorough before I use it. Of course, we wash them all with soap and water, but a little more thorough scrub doesn't hurt anybody. I personally like to have a space for unopened jar boxes and empty boxes to stack. Jar boxes make moving filled jars to your shelves easy. If you need more storage for empty jars, you can also fill the boxes and stack empty jars. It will also help identify jar sizes. So if you have to put two size jars on one shelf and you need to split it, it identifies a jelly jar from a pint jar by just putting them in their boxes and stacking them. Now this is your standard garage storage shelf. You can find them for about $200 at a hardware store or find them online used. We just trimmed it out with wood for a visual effect because I have a problem and I need my things to flow. But the wood fronts actually create like a little lip so the jars don't slide off the front. And then I store all of my empty rings on a rope and hang them on the sides. So that also acts like a barrier to the jars. And last but not least, one of the most very important and useful supply items will be a work table. This can be a stationary table, but I prefer wheels. You will absolutely use it. I found my drop leaf table in a marketplace for $50 and it is an absolute catch-all workhorse. I do everything on this table. I collect supplies, I prep dry goods, I vacuum seal, I break down my dried herbs, I collect my seeds from their casings, I put my processed jars here to prep them for the shelves, and everyone stacks everything onto this table that needs to get put away. It's perfect for everyday use because it's narrow and it rolls, so I can roll it out of my way. And for those days where I have massive jobs that are taking up a lot of space, I have the leaves that I can pull up and it makes the table huge. Well, friends, that is it for this video, and I hope you were able to take some information that will help you on your journey to an organized canning space that you are in love with. And before you mention that you don't have the room, just take a moment to think outside of a floor plan. Just because a piece of paper says a space is a space doesn't mean that it suits your family's needs. Take that space and make it magical and functional for your actual needs. You have to start somewhere. I just so happen to have a cinder block room with no workable walls as my starting point, but it has absolutely worked for me now. It forced me to get creative on a small budget and create storage that works for my family. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button, and if you made it to the end, please use the Bates Family General in the comments. Interacting with the channel is crucial to helping our community grow. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell on your way out to be notified of new videos whenever I post. And please share this video with anybody you think might find it useful. And you can find me on my social medias on Instagram at the Bates House, hashtag Bates House, pretty much anything. But for now, guys, that is it for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.